So this morning, we're just going to take you through some of those assumptions and some of the work that we think shows good examples of how our manifesto can work. So let's begin. First assumption. Technology is the biggest driver of social interaction. And we hear this a lot. We hear how new technologies of social media are creating new groupings of people. They are widening social circles. They're engineering new kinds of relationships. If you look at the research, if you look at the data, and Facebook is a great source of this because they have a lot of data, it turns out not really to be the case, not at a fundamental level at any rate, that social circles, for example, do not change wildly with the presence of social networks. There are some superficial changes, but the fundamental things actually come from changes in society more than they come from changes in the enablement of technology. So the idea that technology is driving it is something that is very questionable. You think about some of the changes, particularly in the developed world, around, for example, the safety of children. And of course, young people we look at as adopters of technology. Excuse me. If you are in an environment where increasingly you are worried about the safety of your children, you don't let them go out, they still want to do all the things that they always wanted to do. And social networking technologies now become a convenient way to do that. They exploit them because they're there. So the cause and effect is not necessarily the way around we might assume. Not to say, though, that there is no change caused by these technologies. And certainly, one of the things that the kind of broadcasting idea gives you is a new way to appreciate events. John Seeley Brown, who used to run Park, talked about Twitter's blizzard creating a new way to capture the mood of the world, and that certainly is a new thing. But it's not the same as broadcasting the innermost thoughts of your life is not the same as making fundamentally changing your social relationships. So what do brands need to do in order to respond to that? What's the risk? Well, the risk is if we focus too hard on imagining we're affecting change in social relationships, then we run the risk of losing focus because we are not actually driving things that are properly committed, like the relationships that we normally have. Second one, if we listen to a lot of social media gurus at the moment, we might be forgiven for thinking that, to paraphrase John Lennon, social is bigger than Jesus. Or more prosaically, perhaps, social everything is the future of the internet. And this kind of seems plausible because we see that social networking can be plugged into everything. We are seeing people try to re-architect the web as the social web and make it a fundamental component. And there's no doubt that it will be there, but we constantly see in history the idea of the next thing being the future of everything. The idea of talking about search being bigger than social, which is often based on measurements that are not great anyway, because a lot of traffic from social applications is not really valuable traffic, is not helpful because they're not the same thing. So we need to think about these tools as things that we can use in appropriate places, not that one thing will subsume everything else. I mean, it's as much a desire of headline writers to want to do things, want to have a simple message as it is of anything else. And if you think about Mark Zuckerberg and from Facebook and his ability to his wish to reshape the social web, which seems largely based on the concept of the like button being stuck everywhere, you've got to put it in context. Every time we see an increase in volume and increase in richness of the social infrastructure, if you like, it kind of comes at the cost of, or the cost of ease. So blog posts are quite easy compared to making a website, and tweets are really easy compared to making a blog post. The like button is just one bit. I mean, you can't get much less than that. So although we're talking about a social infrastructure, the commitment involved in participating in it is suddenly very low. So in summary, we're seeing a huge volume, a volume of attention, a volume of noise. We're seeing a lot of actual data and a lot of time that the public and brands spend in building networks of nodes and links and relations and likes. But we think the risk is that that comes at the cost of commitment. And of course, commitment is something that you really want if you're a brand, because that's what you survive on. So we're worried about the dilution of commitment, which is why our first manifesto point is that we think brands should do things that encourage people to be empathetic and social.
Thanks. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. One which isn't an LBI example and one that is. So just very briefly, McDonald's have pretty much reinvented their brand, certainly in the UK and around the world, by participating actively in socially valuable activities. And in particular in the UK, they've had really fantastic success working at grassroots level with kids' football. Getting kids to run around on a Sunday and Saturday morning and burn off some energy is a great way of getting them to earn that Big Mac, I suppose. But it's all about a value exchange and a genuine way of participating in networks. And so what we're seeing, and I think we're seeing it everywhere, and you'll hear it again on this stage, I'm sure, later in the conference, is that there is now this sort of movement of corporate social responsibility away from being a little side issue within organisations to being a big part of the brand. An LBI example here done by our agency Syrup in New York is Puma. I was watching the football last night, Denmark versus Cameroon, and sadly the Puma team, Cameroon, did get beaten by the Adidas team, although the kit looked great.